Good morning, everyone. Welcome to General Biology class with the course code of Bio 107. Now, let's have a quick introduction to what biology is all about. The word biology comes from a Greek word, bios, which means life, and logos, which means study. Biology is the study of life and its processes, which involve the characteristics of living things. When we talk about the characteristics of living things, we are simply talking about what life is entailed or what life is all about. Organisms that have life in them, what they do, what they possess. That is, we are looking at their characteristics, which we commonly term as Mr. Niger D, where M is for movement, R is for respiration, N is for nutrition, I is for irritability, G is for growth, E is for excretion, and R is for reproduction. Then D is for death. Every living thing must pass through these particular processes for life to be successful in them. Has its numerous branches: botany, zoology, immunology, microbiology, anatomy, physiology, and even what's it called? And even hematology, evolutionary biology, genetics. These are branches of biology. Then we have scientific approach used in biology. Now, what are scientific approach? Scientific approach helps us in our research, whether in a medical field or in an academic environment. Now, when we talk about scientific approach, we are simply talking about method, make an observation, that is observation, question, hypothesis, predictions based on hypothesis. Then we are also going to then prediction based on hypothesis, and at the same time, you analyze your results. Then in analyzing your results, we talk about the hypothesis positive or the hypothesis negative. Now, in this scientific approach, when you want to carry out a research in an environment, first thing you do is you observe the environment. After observing the environment, what are you looking for in the environment? If the environment if it's on personal hygiene, you check if the environment is clean, if water are polluted or contaminated, if the water is clean for domestic use, then you can now ask questions to proceed in your research. And now, after you might have asked questions or formulate questions, then you will now formulate hypothesis. Hypothesis will now give you a clue of what you are thinking about or what you are about to predict. Now that brings us to prediction based on hypothesis, where you predict and make analysis if your your thought towards that research is going to be true or not. Then from there you now go for that to experiment, where you go for field work, you ask questions and you collect samples and so on and so forth. Then from there, at the end of this experiment, your hypothesis can now either be positive or negative. That is correct or incorrect. Then after that, you now make your report, and that will be the end of your scientific approach. Then let's look at plant biology, which is botany. Plant biology is referred to as botany. Botany is the branch of biology that deals with the scientific study of plants and plant-like organisms. It helps us to understand why plants are also vital, important to the world. Now, plants botany is a very wide course. It tells us about everything about plants, which include the structures, the morphology, the qualities, and the characteristics of each plant. Now, there is this there's this uniqueness in every plant. Either some are nutritional or some act as medicinal values, or some can even serve as for industrial purposes. So when we talk about plant botany or plant biology, we are simply looking at the study of plants entirely in this particular aspect. Now, there is a taxonomical means of classifying plants, which is the kingdom, the phylum, the class, the order, the family, and the genus, and lastly, the species. Then we'll talk about when we talk about the kingdom is the largest of all among plants classification. So in the kingdom, we have kingdom Monera, we have kingdom Phylum, kingdom Protista, kingdom Animalia. So these are all the kingdoms that we have in plant biology. So I repeat again, kingdom Monera, kingdom Protista, kingdom Fungi, kingdom Plantae, then kingdom Animalia. And each of them have their respective characteristics, what they possess in each of them. Now, let me just briefly run through this kingdom. Mind you, I said kingdom is the largest of all classification. So the kingdom Monera are referred to as the kingdom Protistas. The kingdom Monera are referred to as prokaryotic organisms because they are single cell structured plants. They do not contain cellulose. They lack organelles for ribosomes too. Then when we talk about kingdom protistas are unicellular organisms. They are unicellular organisms. That makes them to be eukaryotic in nature. And they also have a definite cellulose and also a definite nucleus. And most of them are aquatic in nature. Then we'll talk about kingdom fungi. In the kingdom fungi, these are non-green organisms because they do not participate in photosynthesis. They do not participate in photosynthesis. So that makes them to have a special quality and characteristics such as they lack chlorophyll since they do not photosynthesize. Um, their reproduction is through asexual and asexual reproduction, and most of them are saprophytic in nature. Why just few of them are parasitic in nature? Then we'll proceed to kingdom fungi, kingdom plantae. Kingdom plantae, when we talk about kingdom plantae, when we talk about kingdom plantae, they are the classification of these are classified into two categories. That is the vascular plants and the non-vascular plants. So which the vascular plant, the non-vascular plant consists of the baryophyta, the anthracytophyta, the hepatocytophyte, and while the vascular plants consist of seedless and the seedless and the seeded plants. The seedless plants are the peridophyta and the rest of them, while the seeded plants are the gymnosperms and the angiosperms. Then moving on to our next topic, then moving on to kingdom animalia. Kingdom animalia composed of all animals. It is the largest of all kingdoms out of the five kingdoms. It is the largest. The reason why it is the largest is because it has so many special characteristics, and these organisms found in this classification have a definite means of identification. They have different morphological classification, different structures, different ways of reasoning. Now, the kingdom Animalia can be looked into this category. That is the polyferal, the chlorenterates, the platyhelminthes, the nematodes, the annelids, the arthropod, the molluscas, and the echidomata, and also the chordata. These are the classification in the kingdom Animalias. So which in the phylum Polyphera, they are known as sponges, which means they are non-motile organisms. They are also multicellular organisms. They have hard outer skeleton. Then moving on to the kingdom Colerenta. That is, the phylum Colerata. They have a hollow body cavity. Their body is differentiated into two ends. That is, it has a segment. Then the body is made up of two layers of cells. Then why the platyhelminthes, they are normally known as flatworms. Their features are, some are complex and differentiated by body structure. They have three layers of cells and they are tripoplastic in nature, while most of them do not have true internal cavity. Then the phylum nematodes. These are roundworms. They are roundworms, so their body, they are bilaterally symmetrical and they are tripoplastic too in nature. That is, three um they have three layers of cells in them too. Why they are parasitic, that causes diseases such as ascaris, amoebiasis, elephantiasis, and the rest of them. The annelids, The annelids have a segmented body, and that makes them to be different. They have this differentiation in head and in tail. And because they have three body layers, they are symmetrically bilateral, and also they have true body cavity. Example of them are the earthworms, the tapeworms. Then, why the phylum Arthropods? They consist of animals with joints, appendages. It is the largest phylum in all kingdom animals. So they have joints, they are bilaterally symmetrical, and also they have an exoskeleton and a segmented body. And also they have a differentiated organ and organ system. Then to the phylum Mollusca, these are the large group of animals which have which are bilaterally symmetrical as well. They have three layers of cells, which makes them triploblastic in nature, and they have less segmented body. They have limbs are actually present. Examples of these are octopus and snails. Then the Echidomata, they are um, they are spiny, skinny animals. So they have three layers of cells too as well. And they have hard skeletal structure and they are free living. Example of them are this jellyfish, the starfish too. Then the phylum Chordata, they possess the following characteristics. They are triploblastic in nature, that is, they have three layers of cells too. Then they are bilaterally symmetrical. Then they have organ system with a level of classification in them. And their circulatory system is closed type. Then the kingdom and the phylum Chordata can be divided into the following. That is the Urochordata, the Cephalochordata, then the Vertebrata. Now, in all these things are what we have in the botany aspect and the zoology aspect of general biology 1. Then let's look at the concept of ecology. Ecology is the branch of science which includes human science, population, community, ecosystem, and biosphere. Now, when we talk about an ecology is the study of organism and its environment and how this organism interacts with the environment. That is, we simply talk about how humans interact with the non-abiotic components or the biotic components too. So not just humans alone, we'll talk about how organisms interact with each other. And this form of interaction might even be positive or negative in any way. Then the concept of ecology tells us that because it has to do with interaction with the living and the non-living component, that makes us to have two components of ecology, sorry. That is the biotic and the abiotic factor. Now, the biotic factor are the living components of the environment where life exists, while the abiotic factors are the non-living factors. But it's just that humans or organisms interact with these factors. Now, examples of the abiotic components include soil, sun, air, but wide examples of the biotic components are birds, bacteria, fungi, plants, animals. Types of ecology. Now we have 6 kinds of ecology: global ecology, landscape ecology, ecosystem ecology, community ecology, population ecology, organismal ecology. Now, when we talk about global ecology, it deals with the interaction among the Earth ecosystem, which is the land, the atmosphere, and the ocean. It helps us to understand the large scale of interaction and their influence on the planet. That is, when we talk about global ecology, we are simply looking at how the Earth, how the Earth interacts with this biotic and abiotic factor. That is where organisms depend on the atmosphere, depends on air, so on those abiotic components now for the association to be successful. But in land ecology, it deals with the exchange of energy, materials, organisms, and other products of the ecosystem. Now, one of the difference between global ecology and landscape ecology is that A global ecology deals with interaction among Earth's ecosystem, land, atmosphere, and ocean. But in landscape ecology, it deals with the exchange of energy, materials. Example of it is what happened in the food chain and the food web. So this is what practically landscape ecology is telling us about. Then ecosystem ecology deals with the entire ecosystem, which includes the study of the living and the non-living environment of ecology. Sorry. So ecosystem deals with the relationship, which includes the biotic and the abiotic factor in the environment and how they interact with themselves. Then community ecology deals with the structure that modifies an interaction among the organism. We are talking about structures that modifies or that structures that helps to understand interaction among these organisms. We are trying to look at a particular geographical area where these organisms stay, like in form of habitat or niche. They settle down in niche, they stay there to perform a specific function, but community, they stay there over a period of time. Then population ecology deals with the factor that alter the impact of genetic composition and the size of population of organism, while organismal ecology is the study of individual organism behavior, such as morphology, physiology, and the rest of them, and also in response to the challenges or environmental challenges. Now, in organismal ecology, this tells us how organisms respond to the environment. So, which the response could be of positive or of negative effect on the organism. Now, when we talk about the positive response, an example of it is, as human, we settle in an environment where it's more conducive, where there's water, there's availability of light, availability of technology. So people want to stay in that kind of environment where social amenities are at a given high rate of standard. But the negative form of interaction is in an organismal ecology is when you stay in an environment and when it is raining season, flood sets in. Now it tends to affect organisms in that environment. So it makes the environment not to be suitable for them or not to be stable for them. The molecular ecology studies on or focuses on the production of protein and how these proteins affect organisms and their environment. This simply explains what happens in mutation and in protein synthesis. So which has to do with the DNA factors and the RNA. Then importance of ecology. We have conservation of the environment. Ecology helps us to preserve natural resources of the environment. Then resource allocation. It also helps us to help resources in the environment to be stable and to be properly distributed equally. By so doing, even if there is competition, there will be no much strife when it comes to resource allocation. Then energy conservation too. It tells us about the flow of energy and explains how nutrition is being, that is relationship is a form of a relationship between the autotrophs and the heterotrophs. You know, the heterotrophs depend automatically on the autotrophs. So that's what is in energy conservation. Then we now proceed to concepts or words associated with ecology. We have population size, which is the number of individuals in a gene pool. Population density, which is the number of individuals per unit area or volume. Population distribution, which is the general pattern in which population or members are dispersed through a habitat. That is where organisms have to stay in a particular region to carry out their daily activities. Then we talk about communities too. Then let's come to forms of interaction among organisms. What are the forms of interactions among organisms? So the forms of interaction among organisms, we have mutual interaction, we have commensalism, we have mutualism, we have parasitism, we have predation, and we have, yes, that is the ones we are looking at for now. So in the neutral interaction, this is where two species do not interact at all. They do not interact at all. While commensalism is when one organism benefits from another, but neutral to another. That is example is the birds that nest in trees. So in return, the tree don't benefit anything from them, but the bird actually benefits from the tree. Then mutualism is a form of interaction that is beneficial to both organisms. Examples are plants and their pollinators too. Examples are also plants and animals. So examples too are also fungi and plant roots. So these are the examples of mutualism, where there is common interest, no one is hurt. Then parasitism is a form of interaction where a particular species benefits from another one at detriment to that. So note that the benefactor is always ready to stay in the host. So a practical example is the Ascaris lumbricoid, they stay in us. We have other worms that settle in man. So you see man as their what? As their host. They eat from us, they carry out their life processes in us, and in return, they leave humans with complications. Then let's look at type of competitive interaction. But before we talk about types of competitive interaction, now because we are talking about ecology, we are talking about organisms, and we've talked about types of or forms of interaction, there is going to be strife, there is going to be conflict. So competitive interaction has a negative effect on both organisms competing for resources. So when there's competition for resources, there's always going to be a form of strife. So which brings us to type of competition. Number one is the intraspecific competition, which is a form of interaction among individuals of the same species where they compete against each other, where human competes against human. Example is if you have a POS business, or you have a you have a POS business, and you have about three persons doing POS within that same row, definitely there's going to be competition. But in interspecific, it is a competition between different species. Example, humans compete against wide variety of species, seeking for food and sovereignty. So in every form of ecology, it could be positive form of interaction or negative form of interaction. And that is why ecology has now helped us to place organisms in their respective habitats. So let's look at ecology of ecosystem. Ecosystem is a community of organisms interacting within a particular physical or within a particular physical environment. Or we can equally define ecosystem as a community plus its biotic factor. So in ecosystem totally depends on the abiotic factor. So that is what we need to know for the concept of ecology. Then we'll move to pollution. Pollution is the introduction of substances or energy that causes adverse changes in the environment and living entities. Pollution is the introduction of harmful substances or the introduction of substance or energy that causes adverse changes in the environment and living entities. Now, what is these substances we are talking about? Toxic chemical substances in the environment, where companies release chemicals and people who produce or who extract from natural resources. So their negative effects to the environment is what we look at as pollution. And these things that causes pollution, we refer to them as what? As pollutants. So energy, how does energy causes pollution to the environment? The bioradiations and the rest of them. So when even the ozone layer depletion, these are things that affect the environment. But because pollution is, we have different things that actually sponsored or give a decorum for pollution to occur, which is, that brings us to types of pollution: air pollution, water pollution, land pollution, soil pollution, and noise pollution. Now, air pollution is referred to as the release of harmful contaminants, chemicals, toxic gases, particulates, biological molecules into the Earth's atmosphere. Now, these chemicals or these toxic substances can emanate from companies where they burn off monoxide and the rest of them to the atmosphere. When this happens, the environment becomes toxic for human health. Now, even human activity too gives a forum for air pollution to occur, such as burning of fossil fuel and burning of wastes, mining operation, exhausting gas from factories and the rest of them. The negative effect of air pollution to human health is that it puts life at risk. So it exposes humans to respiratory disorders, cardiovascular problems. It exposes man to skin diseases such as cancer. It also leads to acid rain, ozone layer depletion, hazard of wildlife, hazards to wildlife, sorry. And also it can also lead to global warming. Now, among all these factors I've mentioned so far, this air pollution, if it should be neglected, it could be considered to be life-threatening. We all remember what happened during COVID-19 because it's a communicable disease too. So people take preventive or precautionary measures in order not to be to be infected. So air pollution is also life-threatening to humans. Then that brings us to water pollution. When is water said to be polluted? Water is said to be polluted when toxic pollutants or particulate matter are introduced into water bodies such as lakes, rivers, and sea. Now, in the aspect of lakes, rivers, and sea, some of us stay in some communities where when we need to dispose waste, we dispose them into the water. Now, these are things that expose or that make water to be contaminated. How about washing of clothes and other things? Now, in the remote areas, people go to the stream to wash. Now, by the time they finish washing, some persons actually pour or raise their clothes directly into this water. And some of this water, people from the other extreme makes use of the water as well. These are things that pollute water. What about defecation inside defecating in water? So we've seen a lot of all these things. And when all these things, or when water becomes polluted, it leads to a serious issue, such as filariasis, schistosomiasis, and the rest of them. And when, apart from even affecting humans too, when water becomes contaminated, such as sea lakes, it puts organisms at risk, especially the aquatic organisms. It deals with the marine life too as well. So, in fact, such kind of things tends to cause in fact, it has a lot of negative effects on organisms that stays in water. Then that brings us to soil pollution. Soil pollution is also called soil contamination, which is referred to as the degradation of land due to the presence of chemicals or other man-made substances in the soil. Now, in soil pollution, there are so many things that pollute soil, even our food chain, our food web. These are things that pollute soil. Human activities such as waste disposals. So when we talk about soil pollution, it is even much more critical to look into soil pollution because when soil becomes polluted, it makes food not to be safe for eating anymore. Crops, agricultural process not to be eaten. Even the soil will not gain fertility. It loses its nutrient completely or partially. Then toxic substances too can also cause respiratory problems or lungs cancer because when breeze blow lights or when winds blow, dust emanates from the soil. And when we inhale these things in the atmosphere, then it becomes life-threatening to humans too as well. Then what about noise pollution? Noise pollution, we refer to it as an unpleasant sound in an environment, or it can also be referred to as the excessive amount of noise in the surrounding that disrupts the natural balance. So what are the health implications of noise pollution? Hear lossing, sleeping disorder, hypertension, communication problem. These are the health implications of noise pollution. So there are several things that contribute to noise pollution, which is industry-oriented noise, transportation noise, construction noise, noise from social events such as loudspeaker, household noise, mixers, TV, washing machine, and the rest of them. When all these things are readjusted, pollution, noise pollution will not have its effect on human to an extent. Then that brings us to conservation. When we talk about conservation of forests, we are simply talking about the practice of planting of more trees and maintaining forested areas for sustainability for the next generation. Now, conservation helps us to preserve life, helps us to preserve trees. It also serves as economical value to the nation too. So conservation is very, very important because when trees are being pulled down, that is deforestation, it will now make life or organisms who have used that environment for habitat to relocate. And when that happens, they might find themselves in an environment that is not conducive. So the environment will now become so it will become so challenging, or it will become so problematic to the organisms, leading to their cause of death. It can also, and when this happens, some can also become a threat to humans. You start seeing reptiles and the rest in the house. So conservation of forests is the practice of planting more trees and maintaining forested areas. Now, the importance of maintaining forested areas, before we talk about that, there are some following major steps of conserving a forest. Now, what are the importance of forestation, for conservation? Number one, they help for medicinal values. Number two, they help our environment to be healthy. Number three, they serve as ecology balance. That is, it helps to create a form of interaction between plants and animals, which is very, very essential. It is also economically important to the nation. Some of them now serve as lucrative areas where people go as resorts, where people go settle and do things and save things for themselves and come back. Then it also helps to preserve biodiversity. Now, this has to do with the shelter of organisms in the forest. Now, why is conservation important? Because it's all about breathing, right? There is an absolute need to save our floras and fauna in the forest for the following reasons. Number one, it is all about breathing. Without oxygen, non-living organisms cannot survive. It plays a specific significance in the role of carbon cycle too. So these are just reasons or importance why conservation is very, very important to human. So this is where we'll be rounding up in our class for today, our session for today. In our next class, we'll talk about food chain and food web. So kindly drop your username and your center in the comment section.